Welcome to this video session. In this video, I will be discussing about the image transforms. In the previous video, we had discussed about the basics of image processing. In this, we will be looking into the different image transforms like the 2D DFT, the Hadamard transform, Walsh transform, Haar, slant, KL transform, and DCT transforms. Let us look at some of the applications of the transforms. It is used in the image enhancement, compression, for feature extraction and representation, for pattern recognition. For example, the Eigen faces. It can also be used for dimensionality reduction, where we use the dominating components. These are some of the applications where we use the transforms. First of all, why we have to go for this transforms? It is easier to operate on the frequency domain, where we can remove the frequency related issues, and it is better compared to the spatial domain. So the unit, we have to understand few terms before we go into the image transforms. First is, what is a unitary transform? Unitary transform, all these are related to the matrix. If you consider a matrix A, so the product of the transpose of matrix A and the conjugate of matrix A will be an identity matrix or a unit matrix. So this is called as a unitary transform. So the transform should obey this the matrix relationship. Then we call that it is a unitary transform. Next, when we say a matrix is real, that means the matrix is equal to the conjugate of the same matrix. Next, we say it is symmetric when it obeys the law that the transpose of the matrix is equal to the conjugate of that matrix. We say it is orthogonal when the transpose of the matrix is equal to the inverse of the matrix. So these are some of the terms that we have to know. Now, for example, if you consider the matrix A here, we can identify the relationship that it is a unitary, it is real. If you take the conjugate, now in this there are no J terms, so even if you take the conjugate, you will get the same result. So you can verify that you get the, so with this matrix A is a unitary matrix, it is a real matrix, symmetric, and it is orthogonal. Now we talk of another term called the Kronecker products. Now what is a Kronecker product? If I consider A as a given matrix here with these 4 elements and B as the other 4 elements, so we represent the Kronecker product of A and B with this symbol shown here. So how do we represent this? In the matrix A, it has 4 elements, B, it has 4 elements. So the element The first element of matrix A is multiplied by all the four elements of matrix B, and you get the four elements of this Kronecker products, the first four elements. The next four is got by multiplying the second number in matrix A with the four numbers in matrix B. Next, the third set, that is the lower four sets to the left, is obtained by multiplying this number 1 in the second row first column with all the four elements, and the third, the last, we will get by multiplying the last element, that is -1, with all the four elements, so you get all the numbers as 4. So now this is what you call it as a Kronecker product. So it becomes, when you multiply by these, it becomes the size. You can see the size when you multiply a 2 matrix by 2 matrix, a 2 by 2 multiplied by another 2 by 2. So we got a 4 by 4 matrix. And this does not, that is A, the Kronecker product of A and B is not same as Kronecker product of B with A. So that we can verify here. So these are some of the things. And one more point that we have to remember when we are dealing with image transforms is energy compaction. What is energy compaction? If you look at this diagram or graph here, so this graph indicates the sample scan line. It's a continuous scan line. It shows the different numbers, different samples, up to 250 samples it is showing, and its value, its amplitude at those different samples. Now these are different samples having different values. Now when we say that energy compaction, here is the graph. In the second graph we see that the energy is concentrated at a lower number of pixels, and as we proceed to the higher pixels, that is up to 250, they are all having less amount of energy. Now this is what we call it as energy compaction. Next, we look into the first type of two-dimensional transform. It's a Fourier transform. Of course, you would see this. The first one is the forward transform. The second one is the inverse transform. In the forward transform, in the normal one-dimensional, you will not get this 1 by n term, but to make it unitary, we are having the 1 by n at the forward transform as well as at the inverse transform. So this is the two-dimensional Fourier transform. So why we should go for this Fourier transform, or how simple it is, we will see here. This diagram tells how we compute the Fourier transform. F of xy, the small f of xy, is the actual image on which, if you perform the row transformation by simply multiplying by the n, then we get the intermediate result f x or x comma v. Then this matrix, again when you perform column transformation, you get f of uv. So this is the technique involved in finding the 2D Fourier transform. Now let us look at the properties of 2D discrete Fourier transform. The first property is the separable property, separability property. So that means the property is separable. So if you take the forward transform, this is the equation, and the inside term, that is the exponential term, we call it as a kernel. So that can be split. E power AB can be written as e power a into e power b. So with that scenario, we have written here. Next, if you applying this result inside here, and f of xy involves both the the y term, so therefore you can split it into two multiples. Now we are going to call the inner summation with a different notation, such that we are going to call that, so this is nothing but uh, we are going to call that as f of x comma v, capital F of x comma v, where f of x comma v will be, we have to simply multiply, this is, but we already know f of uv is 1 by n, but so therefore we compute f of xv by simply multiplying f of uv with, not f of uv, this term that we had defined. So n, it will be multiplied with this previous term. So this is nothing but the n multiplication to obtain the DFT for the rows. So that is a row transformation. Next, to compute f of u comma v, we perform the column transformation by using this next relationship. So this is called the separability. That means what was joined inside the kernel, that we have split it into two ways. So this is called as a separability property. This is one of the very useful property for most of the transforms. So 2D Fourier transform exhibits this um, separability. We'll look into the other properties. So DFT and its inverse are periodic with n. So therefore, it obeys the periodicity property. And you know the translation property or the shift property, a shift in one domain will result in an exponential term in the other domain. So here, if you do in the spatial domain, here we call it as, in the one dimensional, we call it as the time domain and the frequency domain. So here we call it as a spatial domain. So small f of x minus x naught comma y minus y naught, we call this as the spatial domain shift or translation, which results in an exponential term in the frequency domain. And similarly, by a shift in the frequency domain, it results in an exponential term in the spatial domain. And we know the convolution as well. So all whatever properties you would have studied about the 1D Fourier will also hold good in this case. Hey, don't make noise. Okay, the next we will look into the next topic. The next is the Hadamard transform. The Hadamard transform equations are given here. So what are these? We will just look into it. So this is a unitary transform. So therefore, we have the similar equation, but the inside term is a little different. So here, what is this bi of x and so on is what we have given here. X, for example, if x value is 6, then the binary value of 6 is written as 110. So therefore, we have the 3 bits B2, B1 and B0. So B0 is the least significant bit, and B2 is the most significant bit in this. So what are these B's? Bi represents all the different bits. So we are going to have this -1 to the power of these terms, which will result in a +1 or a -1. So the Hadamard transform, as compared to the Fourier transform, it does not contain other values like the complex. So it has only -1 and +1. So that is the Hadamard transform. Whereas in Fourier, you will get all different values, the coefficients. So therefore, in the Hadamard transform, it will be related to only +1 or -1. So that is all about the Hadamard transform. Now let us look at how this Hadamard transform works. For example, here we have uh, the core matrix. So this is called the core matrix. That means from with this you can build orders of different matrix sizes. So this is the core matrix called. Now here we use the Kronecker product recursion such that Hn, that is any order n, we get by multiplying Hn minus 1, the Kronecker product, with H1. But this Hadamard transform has a special property that it obeys the uh, commutative law, whether Hn minus 1 Kronecker product with H1 or the other way around, we get the same result. So therefore, for example, if I want to find H3, then that will be the Kronecker product of H1 with H2. Or if how do I find H2? H1 Kronecker producted with H1. So therefore, that means I have the matrix above given here, which is H1. So as I said in the previous discussion or just a while ago, I had said how we can get the uh, Kronecker product. So this is the Kronecker product of H1 into H1. Of course, the 1 by 2 has to be multiplied by 1 by 2. And since we were looking for H3, so all that will be multiplied. I mean, all that different rows and columns will be obtained. Thereby, that means the different elements all are obtained. And since there are 3 stages, so therefore we'll have 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2. That will be 1 by root 8. So this is uh, the Hadamard transform for the stage 3, or it is an 8 by 8 matrix. So all these are in powers of 2. All these matrices are in powers of 2. That is 2 power 2, 2 power 4, sorry, 2 power 2, 2 power 3, 2 power 4, and so on. That is uh, a 4 element, I mean 2, 2 by 2, or and so on. So this will be the uh, way we will be generating this Hadamard transform. Now here in the side, if you see, this is called as a sequency. Now what is a sequency? This is nothing but the change in the signs. So this change in the sign is what we call it as a frequency. So this is what is related to the frequency term. So here we see that in the first row, it is there are no transitions. So therefore it is zero transition. In the in the second row, there are 7 transitions: plus to minus, minus to plus, plus to minus, minus to plus, plus to minus, minus to plus, and so on. So there are 7 transitions like this. If you identify, this gives the this numbers give the sequency or the sign changes. So if you see here, it is not in the ordered. That means 0, 1, 2, 3. It doesn't appear in that sequence. It is in a different sequence here. So this is the Hadamard transform, so which has the sequency here. So this is about the Hadamard transform. Let us look at one example of how we find the Hadamard transform. Say for example, this is a F is a matrix given. We have to find the 2D Hadamard transform. For that, the solution is, we first find the 4 by 4 matrix for the Hadamard transform from the previous uh, discussion. So therefore, this is the matrix we have got. So we have to remember what is the core matrix. Starting from the core matrix, we obtain this matrix A here, which is the Hadamard transform. Next, we use this equation to find the Hadamard transform of the given matrix. So the resultant matrix, that is a transform matrix T, is equal to the Hadamard matrix A multiplied by the input matrix F, and multiply that result multiplied by the transpose of A. Now this is the first result, that is the resultant of uh, A multiplied by F. Next, the result is finally again multiplied by A transpose. So we got the result. So that is the answer. So this is how we compute the Hadamard transform for any given matrix. This can be for any size of matrix. Of course, the matrix we have to, if it is not of the standard size, that means if it is only 6 by 6 and we have 8 by 8 matrix, so we have to do zero padding and then compute the results. So what are the properties of the Hadamard transform? It is real, it is symmetric and orthogonal. And then, so this is what, so real is C is equal to, if a matrix, it is represented in the matrix form as C. So C is equal to C conjugate. Symmetric means C conjugate is equal to C transpose. And orthogonal, C transpose is equal to C inverse. And unlike the Fourier, which takes all the trigonometric values, the Hadamard transform takes only +1 or -1. So since we are dealing with +1 or -1, we can use it for representing of square waves. So this, we can use all digital values here, and we therefore Hadamard transform is suitable for digital environment. The Hadamard transform directly, if you see, it does not, there is no sequency that is followed. So as we had discussed here, the sequency, that is the order of the numbers here, is not in the proper order. So that, because of the sequency problem, it cannot be directly used for the uh, you cannot use it for the direct fast computation. So once you make it an ordered, that means you reorder that so that it is in the ascending order. Once you have ordered the Hadamard transform, then you can have a direct, you can use the fast algorithm for computation of the fast Hadamard transform. The other important property of Hadamard transform is it uses this recursive relationship H2n is equal to this matrix. So therefore, we can construct any matrix using Hadamard transform. So next we look into the Walsh transform. Walsh transform is very much similar to Hadamard transform. But what is the specialty of Walsh transform is the forward and the inverse function looks the same. That is the specialty of the Walsh transform. And it is nothing but, it is the sequence uh, ordered. The sequency is ordered in Walsh transform, whereas in Hadamard transform, it is not ordered. That is the main difference between the Walsh transform and Hadamard transform. Otherwise, everything, whatever we discussed about the Hadamard transform, holds good for Walsh transform as well. So therefore, Walsh transform is separable, symmetric. It also has -1 and +1 values, so you can use it for digital environment. But because Walsh transform has the sequency, therefore we can directly use the inverse uh, inverse the fast method for inverse computation. And for Walsh transform exhibit the property of energy compaction. So this is what we have to remember about the Walsh transform. The next important transform is the Haar transform. So Haar transform is defined by this equation hk of x, where x is a number that is within the interval 0 to 1, in the closed interval 0 to 1, and k can take any values between 0 to n minus 1, so capital N minus 1, and capital N is a base 2 number, that means it's 2 power n. And what how we compute this k is, the k is equal to 2 power p plus q minus 1. So we are going to use this p and q to compute the k. So k represents the row numbers, and this p and q will be used to find the elements in that row. So this is what, these are the equations used. Now this is for a one-dimensional transform, Haar transform. Now how we convert this into a matrix form? For example, if we have k as a k, if it's taking for capital N equals 4, that means I have 4 elements of the matrix, 2 by 2 matrix. So small n will be equal to 2. So therefore, k will take a value less than n minus 1. I mean, k will vary from 0 to n minus 1. So therefore, it is 0, 1, 2, 3. Then from this equation, we compute the value of p and q to be these combinations here. So the p can take a value from 0. From this equation given here, we see that p can take a value from 0 less than or equal to p, and it should be less than or equal to n minus 1. When q is 0 or 1, p is 0. And when p is not equal to 0, then q can take a value between 1 and 2 power p. And x will give us the different values, that is m by n. So m will be varying from 0 to n minus 1. So this x and k will give us the different uh, free elements of the matrix. For example, if I want to compute this sec H2, that is the 2 cross 2 matrix, then I will be using, this is the basics. This is the basic transform I will be using, and this is, I have got this from the block spot I have shown here. So this block spot will give a clear explanation of how he has derived this. So I thank Mr. Satyamurthy for that. So from there, this will be the starting matrix, just like we had seen for the um, Hadamard transform. So this will be the starting matrix for Haar transform to build multiple transforms. I mean the sizes of transforms of different, or the matrix of different sizes. So for the 8 to 8 cross 8 matrix, so this is the result obtained. Let us see what are the properties of the Haar transform. So here Haar is also orthogonal, and it is real, and it is fast transform, but it has poor energy compaction, not compactness, yeah, poor energy compaction. So it is not very good in power energy, sorry, not power, energy compaction. The next transform that we are looking at is the slant transform. The slant transform, the general, this is also a 2 power n transform. So it is a related, it is a it will all be a square matrix, and the general transform is given by one, I mean this equation here gives the general transform here, and we can see here that you have these values A and B. So these parameters we have to compute. Now let me give a clear idea on what is this transform elements here. So here the element, if you observe the first element here, it is 1 and 0, and then we have an and bn. So these are the elements here, the only 4 elements, and this 0 here with this box here. So we can you can use it to add more elements in that. So therefore we can have more elements by adding. So this slant transform here represents the generic. Using this we can build up on the different matrix sizes. So here the equations for computing an and bn, the parameters are given here. So this is a recursive equation. So as we know, it's, as we can see here, it has to start with, I mean, to compute bn we require an minus 1, I mean an parameter, but to compute an again we require an minus 1. So therefore the starting value for the parameter a1 will be equal to 1. So that will be the starting. So with this we can compute the different matrices. Now for S1 we will have this as a starting matrix. So let us say we want to compute for S4. That means a 4 cross, I mean 4 element by 4 element. In this case, we can see that the first one, from the first square from Sn, we have 1 and 0 written as it is, and then an and bn value will be 2 by 5, 2 by root 5 and 1 by root 5 from this equation. And the second box with the 0, all that elements are not taken because we have only 4 elements, I mean 4 by 4. So therefore 1 0 an bn, that is from Sn, and the next 0 box will not be taken. 1 0 minus an bn will be taken, and the next 0 will not be taken. So like this we have 4 here, 4 here, and the 4 with the box below that, and the other box we will be taking. So only those 4 4 and 4 and these 4. So altogether we will get 8 values. So the other zeros will come into picture when we are going for a higher order. And this I n by 2 minus 2 is nothing but it's a identity matrix. So for example, if we are going for a 8 by 8 matrix, then we will have the first row will be 1 0, and then next 2 will be zeros because of the 0 matrix there, and next 2 column, I mean next 2 values will be 1 0, the next 2 values will be 0 0. If you come to the next row, it will be an bn, and since there is a 0 0, I mean the 0 matrix there, so it is 0 0. Then you will have minus an bn, then the next 2 will be 0 0. If you go to the next row, the first 2 elements will be 0 0, and the next element will be the first row of the identity matrix of 2 comma 2, because 2 n by 2 means n is, we are taking it as 8, so n by 2 means 4. So in that already 2 rows and 2 columns you have given out here, so therefore it is n by 2 minus 2. So therefore it will be 1 0, and the next will be 0 0, and the next 2 elements will be 1 0. If you come to the next row, it will be 0 0 will be the first 2 elements, 0 1 will be the next 2 elements in that row, and 0 0 will be the next 2 elements, and 0, 1 will be the next two elements. So on, we can compute the entire matrix. And of course, that has to be multiplied with a n by 2 matrix of 4 by 4 with Sn of 2 by 2 matrix and 0 of 0 of 2 by 2 matrix. So this, 4 by 4 matrix will be multiplied with this 8 by 8 matrix. So therefore, that will be the result. So here we have shown for a S4. So therefore, the 0 and the identity matrix don't come into picture. All those elements are uh, deleted. So let us look at the advantages or the properties of slant transform. It is real and orthogonal. It is fast, and it has very good compaction. But if you see here, it does not have with only 1 and -1. You have all other fractional values, unlike the Hadamard or the Walsh transform. Next, we will go for the KL transform. If you observe the statistics of the image, the statistical properties of the image, we can achieve compression. That means by using the mean, median, we can perform, they will be useful for compressing the data. We can analyze the data and perform compression. So if once we have performed the image compression, we will be reducing the bits, and this, once the bits are reduced, the image data will be highly correlated. So we can't reduce the image data further. In such cases, we go for KL transform. KL transform is also called as Hotelling transform or the eigenvector transform. So what this KL transform does is, it first does the decorrelating of the uh, data there, and once the decorrelation is done, then we can reduce or compress the image further. So this is the advantage of using KL transform. How this KL transform is done or works is in these 4 steps. First, we find the mean vector and covariance matrix for the given image. Next, we find the eigenvalues and eigenvectors for the covariance matrix. Then we create the transform matrix, where we replace all the rows of the transform matrix by the eigenvectors, and finally find the KL transform. Let us look at the steps in detail. First, let us consider this image given here in terms of x. So x00 represents the 0, 0 element, x01 will be the next element, and so on. So it is of a size, the m by n. So m number of rows and n number of columns. So so how many columns we'll have? We'll have n number of columns. So first we find the mean vector and covariance matrix X. To do that, we break down the entire matrix into column vectors. So we will have different column vectors. So here x1 will be the first column vector with all the first column elements starting from x00 to x10, x20, so on up to x0m, because there are m number of rows. So like this, if this is the first column, then second column will be x2 and so on up to xn. So we will have n number of columns because the matrix is a m cross n matrix. For this, we find the mean vector by using this equation. Mx is equal to E of x, where E of x is the expected value. Because it is a random variable, we use the expectation operation. So expected value, and we find the covariance matrix represented as Cx. This is equal to expectation of x minus x mx into x minus mx dash. So this will be the covariance matrix, and this covariance matrix is real and symmetric, so it can be approximated to this equation here: 1 by n sigma k equals 1 to n xk into x dash of k minus mk mx minus m dash of m dash x. So this is the first step. We have to find the mean vector and the covariance matrix. Next, the second step, we have to find the eigenvalues and eigenvectors for the covariance matrix. So how we do that is, let vi and lambda I be the eigenvectors and eigenvalues of the covariance matrix, where the value of I varies from 1 to n, that is the number of columns. Then the eigenvalue can be found by using this equation: mod Cx minus lambda I is equal to 0. Next, we find the eigenvector by using the equation Cx. This is for the first row, first eigenvector. So Cx v1 is equal to lambda v1. So similarly, we can find for the different eigenvectors. Next, we create the transform matrix T by putting all the eigenvectors as the rows. The first will be the first computed eigenvector will be the first row, and so on. Next, the KL all the other eigenvectors will be the different rows corresponding to the calculation. Next, the vector coordination will the vector corresponds to the largest eigenvalue is the first vector. That is the eigenvector corresponding to the first to the largest eigenvalue will be the first row, and then the smaller one will be following that. So it will be in the descending order. Now this KL transform matrix is orthogonal, so therefore it satisfies these two conditions. Next, we find the KL transform of the image by simply multiplying this transformation matrix, whatever we have used, with the centralized image vector. Therefore, this is the formula for computing or finding the KL transform. Now, what are the advantages of this KL transform? We get the minimum mean square error when we are using for a shortened version. Then the decorrelation of the transform coefficients happens. What are the disadvantages? Data are dependent. So therefore, we need to have a good estimate of the second order statistics. Next, this KL transform involves increased computation complexity. So therefore, what is the solution? What is the how we overcome this is by using the DCT. So DCT is close to KL for highly correlated first order stationary Markov source, and DCT is a good replacement for KLT in what cases? When when the correlated data is close to optimal, and the data is not dependent, and if you want to have a fast algorithm, but KL does not have a fast algorithm for computation. So in these scenarios, we go for a DCT. Otherwise, KL transforms only holds good. So properties of the DCT transform: it is real transform. The DCT has excellent energy compaction properties, and there are fast algorithms to compute DCT similar to the DFT, the FFT. For the FFT is used for the DFT computation. Now, these are the forward and inverse equations to compute the DCT, where A is a parameter that can be calculated by using this for u equals 0 and for all other values of u. Let us have a comparison between uh, the DFT, DCT and KLT. So this table indicates for the inverse transform available for all, the energy conservation, that is a Parseval's theorem, holds good in all, which is good for energy compaction. Not very sure of the DFT, but orthonormal complete basis, and where the DFT and DCT are shift and rotation invariant, whereas KLT is not. Now, if you come to the implementation, DFT is not a real valued, whereas DCT and KL transform are a real valued because cosine does not give any imaginary terms. Next, uh, DFT and DCT are separable, but KLT is not separable, and we have the FFT, that is the fast butterfly structure, to compute for DFT as well as DCT and not for KLT, and the forward and inverse transform we have for DFT and DCT but not for KL transform. So these are some of the transforms we had looked into in this discussion. So with this, we come to the end of this module. Thank you.